stronger and the more difficult the tests that they have to pass. The Prophets ﷺ had the highest level of Imaan. So they were put through the harshest of tests. Most difficult tests in this world came to the Prophets ﷺ. Sometimes they would be physical in the form of being tortured and punished, falling sick, being poisoned. Sometimes they would be from their emotions, being hurt by people, sometimes being hurt by those that are closest to them, their wives, their children, their blood relatives, their tribes. So after the Anbiya alayhimus salam, the highest status belongs to the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They were also put through extremely difficult and stringent tests. In one battle, the Battle of Hunayn, which took place after the conquest of Makkah, the battle itself was a test because the Muslims went in overconfident due to their numbers. For the first time, it looked like they were going to outnumber their enemy. So they said, today there's no way we can lose because of smaller numbers. Khair, very early in the battle, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed them that their numbers were not going to give them victory, because in the beginning they started losing. Then the Prophet ﷺ called the Ansar, the people of Medina, close to him. And the people who took the bay'ah, the oath of allegiance under the tree at Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, he called them close to him. So they rushed close to the Prophet ﷺ, and then he ﷺ moved forward with them, and they were able to reverse it. Ultimately they won. This battle perhaps brought them the greatest amount of war spoils, meaning wealth that is conquered and taken after a battle, more than any other battle. And the reason for this was that the people of Hunayn, the chief of Hunayn, the chief of the people of Hawazin, had told his people to bring everything that they had, all their belongings, and these people had a lot of animals, a lot of animals. So they brought like some 20,000 camels and many thousand goats and sheep. They brought all of this into the battlefield. Why? To remind them of what would happen if they lost the battle, that all of this would go into the hands of the enemy. And they brought all their family members. They brought their women, their children, they brought everything, and they brought all of the wealth, all of the gold and silver that they had. It was a huge tribe between Hawazin and Thaqif. So when the Muslims won, all of this came into their hands. So there was an enormous amount of wealth to be distributed. Now, as I mentioned, this happened right after the conquest of Makkah. And at the conquest of Makkah, just before, during, and shortly after, pretty much everyone of Quraysh accepted Islam. All of those who had been fighting against the Prophet ﷺ for all these years, they accepted Islam. So people like Abu Sufyan, for example, who had waged many wars against the Muslims, he became Muslim. His son Muawiyah became Muslim. And Ikrimah, the son of Abu Jahl, became Muslim. Hind, the wife of Abu Sufyan, became Muslim. These were all very staunch enemies. So there was a huge number of these recent converts to Islam. And the fact was that they were so new in their religion that they didn't really know much. And they were still very shaky. And on the other side, they had lost recently, over the last 4 or 5 years, they had lost many battles against the Muslims. In that, they had lost their wealth, they had lost their children, some in cases that there were many orphans who had lost their fathers. And so the Prophet ﷺ used almost all of this wealth to give to these new Muslims. When this happened, the Ansar some of the Ansar were really surprised and they were hurt. They said that, well, when help is required in the battlefield, our name is called, "O Ansar, come." And when it's time to distribute the wealth, then it's given to someone else, people who've just accepted Islam, they haven't done anything for Islam yet. These types of words reached the Prophet ﷺ, so he collected all of the Ansar in a small field. And when he arrived, he asked them that, what are these statements that I'm hearing? So some of the Ansar, the senior Sahaba, they said, "O Prophet of Allah, this was some youngsters from amongst us who said this. The majority of us would never dare say such a thing." So he ﷺ said, "Look, weren't you people all astray? And then I came to you and Allah guided you through me?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Weren't you people impoverished, like in complete poverty? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you wealthy and prosperous through me?" He said, "Yes." But the Prophet ﷺ said, "Wait a minute, you don't have to say yes. You could also say to me that, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we supported you when there was no one with you. We gave you our wealth when you had no wealth. We gave you all our resources when you had no resources." He said, "If you wanted, you could have said this." They said, No, we would never say such a thing." He said, "But it would be true. But let me explain something to you. You people have such a place in my heart that no one else can occupy. If all of mankind were to walk down one path and the Ansar were to walk down another path, I would choose the path that the Ansar are walking on. And if it weren't for the fact that Allah was going to make hijrah happen, if this had not been decreed by Allah, I would have been one of the Ansar instead of someone from Makkah." He said, "Look, these people have come recently into Islam, and I have given them all of this wealth to make up for many losses that they have been enduring. It's property, wealth, possessions, things that neither Allah has any value for, nor do I have any value for them. So how would you like if people went home with camels and goats and you went home with Allah and His Prophet on your side? What would you rather have?" So they all said, "We would rather have Allah and His Prophet." He said, "Indeed, when this war ends, these people will go home with their goats and sheep. I am going to go home with you back to Medina." So in that way, they let everything go. They apologized. But look at the lesson, that even after doing everything, they did not get any monetary gain. This is a testament to their ikhlas, to their sincerity, that they only did things to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tomorrow we may also be in a position where we're doing many good things, and we see the opportunity to benefit somehow, to exploit that, either for financial gain, or to make a name for ourselves, or something else. But that is our test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts us through. If we stay pure in our intention that we are doing whatever we are doing only for the sake of Allah, then we will also go back home with Allah and His Rasul on our side. Otherwise we will go home maybe with some monetary, with maybe some financial benefits, but Allah and His Rasul will never be pleased with us. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to take lessons from these people who are our guides, our models, and also give us the ability to be sincere in all of our endeavors from the beginning to the end. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.